Okay, Mr. Kersey, are you with us? Paul, are you here?
Yes.
Excellent. I think we are ready to get rolling. This is the Counter-Racist Evolving Engineer Program. I am your host, Cree, and I go by the same acronym as the program, obviously, CREE. Today, I think, is a special treat, real different for the Cree venue. Let's go ahead and just do the usuals. Today is September 15th, 2011. And by way of introduction, I think what I will do is kind of give a little background, really by way of just a little bit of the conversation that Paul and I had right before we went on the air. And I think this needs to be said, given what the usual listenership is for this program. And that is why I was interested in having Paul on as a guest. Of the, I don't know, I actually have not counted, but of the 60 or so shows that I've done, Paul is only the third guest that has been white. And aside from him being white, the views that he so clearly expressed on his blog, which is called Stuff Black People Don't Like, and that's on Blogspot, so you can find it at stuffblackpeopledon'tlike.blogspot.com. The views that he's expressed are so divergent from mine, as well as from the usual listener base, that one would wonder why I would ever have someone like him on the program. And actually, that was a question that I was asked. And my answer to the question is this. I, first of all, have confirmed that Paul is a white man. Because he is a white man, he belongs to a group of people who are the most powerful people in the known universe. And because that is true, and because our relationship, our meaning black people's relationship with this most powerful group of people on the planet, has not been healthy for us, it is critically important that we understand as best we can what they think. And I thought that this man expressed some views so openly and so clearly that I wanted to risk him doing the same during our chat here this evening. So I am not in this to have a debate. I am not in this to convince him that he is incorrect. I am in this to learn not only what he thinks, but any other thing that might be constructive. I would hope that there would be people who would be willing to also ask him questions. But as I have said with previous guests, I do not want a debate either between myself and the guests, nor between callers and the guests. And I need to let you know, Paul, that my usual callers, I wouldn't say usual, but my typical caller, they do not engage in polemic, not that kind of polemic. They don't engage in a contentious debate. We just really want to know what you think and what your views are. So I think what I would do, for those people who have not had a chance to look around your site or to look at your books, because Paul is also the author of 3 books. The titles are Black Run America, which I think is just a compendium of the writings on the site for the first year. The other is called Blackface, Hollywood in Blackface, I'm sorry. And the third one is called Captain America and Whiteness. And so if you haven't had a chance to go on Amazon and read the book descriptions, if you haven't had a chance to really tool around on his site, I guess for those people, Paul, could you tell the audience who you are and anything about your background that you think they should know before we start our dialogue?
Cree, yeah, first of all, I want to say again, thanks for having me. You'd actually be kind of shocked to know, and a lot of people out there would probably be even more interested to find out that I'm actually 1/4 Filipino. If you know much about Mark Paul Gosselaar's background, Mark Paul Gosselaar played Zach Morris in Saved by the Bell. He and I have similar background. I am like Mark Paul Gosselaar, as I'm 1/4 Filipino. So to classify me as a fully white guy, it would be incorrect. But I can't really give too much about my background. I'm a guy who grew up in one of the suburbs of one of the biggest cities in America, and I was influenced by the website Stuff White People Like. I thought that was an interesting satire by Christian Lander. I believe he's a Canadian who did Stuff White People Like and coined the hilarious term swipple. So, one day I just thought about, what if we just did something that would get people talking? I think Eric Holder, the Department of Justice, the Attorney General of the United States, said we're a nation of cowards when it comes to talking about race, and I agree with him. I don't think we should be a nation of cowards. I think that, W.E.B. Du Bois said that the color line would be the great discussion of the 20th century, and I see no reason to believe that it won't be the great discussion of the 21st century. In fact, it will probably be the discussion, especially in the next couple of years, with the election of 2012, where Barack Obama tries to become the president again, up against one of the feckless conservatives he runs against. And it's going to be very interesting because we're going to see just how well this experiment in democracy works, especially if Barack Obama loses, which I don't think is going to happen. But yeah, Stuff Black People Don't Like, or SBPDL, the acronym. There's been 3 books. One is called SBPDL Year 1, and you're right, Cree, it is just a compendium of the best of the first year, which was largely a spoof of the Stuff White People Like site. Then I did a book called Hollywood in Blackface, Black Images in Film, from Night of the Living Dead to Thor, where I just kind of discussed the strange casting decisions by Hollywood to have a computer programmer or a scientist or a fighter pilot, or prominent roles where blacks would be cast, where there aren't really that many real life facsimiles of these characters. And to give you a case in point, there's a movie coming out called Dolphin Tale on September 23rd, which is about a true story based on a dolphin that had its tail caught in a crab trap. And, guess what? These 2 white guys decided to build a prosthetic for the dolphin. Well, in the movie, strangely, you're going to have Morgan Freeman playing an amalgamation of these 2 characters, these white guys that actually invented the prosthetic for this dolphin. They're not going to be in the movie. It's going to be Morgan Freeman. It's going to be, that quintessential, and I like Morgan Freeman. He's a good actor. I liked him when he played in Batman Begins and Dark Knight as Lucius Fox, but again, he played a inventor of all these fantastic weaponry and advanced technology. Where's the real life, equal to that? The equal would be the guy who invented the Super Soaker. The Super Soaker is one of the great black inventions, and I'm being honest when I say this. I've looked at all the inventions, and the Super Soaker. It's a fantastic way to fire, weaponized water. That's about it. That's about it. And the other book I wrote was called Captain America and Whiteness. I've always found it interesting that the intelligentsia and the academia likes to use this term whiteness. I don't get what that term really means. So I noticed that superheroes have a tendency to all be white. The majority of the famous superheroes, like Captain America, Superman, Batman, Spider-Man, the Fantastic Four, they were all created largely by Jewish writers in a time period when America was 90% white. And that really doesn't jive with our contemporary times, where the white superhero in film, the white action hero, is sort of being taken away. Thomas Jane, who played in The Punisher, he's also in Hung, HBO's Hung. He was cast in a movie called Headshot with Sylvester Stallone back in May of this year. Well, Joel Silver, the producer, came out and said, you know what? Thomas Jane is too white. We want to have an ethnic audience. We want to be able to capture some of the ethnic audience. Let's cast someone else, because Thomas Jane is just too white of an actor. He's not ethnic enough. And I thought that was just perfectly nailed the whole concept of what I'm trying to show. That we are Hollywood is in the business of manufacturing positive images of a community that sadly is derelict of creating positive images for themselves, say maybe sports stars. And this is one of the reasons why successful black women are having a very difficult time finding members of their own race to marry. I think that's one of the horrible things about what's going on right now for successful black women. They're having a very difficult time finding successful mates on their own level, within their own race, because black women have the lowest rate of interracial marriage of any group. And I think that's really a travesty. One of the travesties of sort of the black culture is that a lot of the males just aren't suitable mates for black women, and also a lot of the time black women have the highest. Statistics show that they don't want to marry people of other races, even though a lot of people are saying, hey, if you want to actually get married, you're going to have to marry a white guy or maybe an Asian. So stuff black people don't like. We just look at this stuff. We look at I look at what's going on in major cities crime wise, and this past summer has been pretty bad. If you look at all these flash mobs, what I call mahogany mobs. I mean, in Milwaukee, Cree, you had at the Wisconsin State Fair back in April, you had hundreds of black youth attacking whites at the Wisconsin State Fair. They pulled people out of cars. I mean, this is not the imagination of some Jim Crow-esque bigot. This is what happened in Milwaukee. They pulled people from cars and were beating them. And in Philadelphia, you've seen even worse type attacks, where this is going on, where just a group of people of black youths just start attacking random white people. So it's not always sunny in Philadelphia. It's quite the opposite. So SBPDL.com. We're just looking at an honest discussion of what's going on out there, and that's really it. That's the best way to describe it. So yeah, I'm not a white guy. I'm a 1/4 Filipino, like Mark Paul Gosselaar, one of my heroes. He's Zach Morris, and that's me.
Okay, so in terms of clarity, because you want, what I just heard you say, I think, is that you wanted to have a lucid and clear exposition of the issues. And I guess in terms of clarity, job one for me is determining what your racial classification is. Meaning, are you white? Do you check the box white on employment forms, etc., on the census? Are you a white person? I understand your ancestry.
Actually, no. I always, because in America there's a racial spoil system for anyone that's not white. You get all sorts of all sorts of extra bonuses if you don't click white. So no, I've taken the time to always check. Well, I'm not Hispanic, but I do check non-white, or I don't check. I've never checked white because I've actually got a scholarship because I said that I had some Asian ancestry, and since most of our scholarships are no longer given out based on merit, and they're, we do live in a country where some people believe that whites, because it's a white country, whites are the majority, that we get everything. Outwardly I might look white, so does Mark Paul Gosselaar, but if you look at the kids he has, they don't look very white, and I don't have any kids yet, but I can guarantee you they'll have a weird look to them. So no, I've never checked white, and I never will check white. On the census, I don't check white.
Okay. If I could just follow this line of reasoning, because this is critically important to me, and I think it's critically important to our listeners. Now, are you generally accepted as white by other white people, by white people?
That's a great question. I did not know that Zach Morris had the same thing, or Zach Morris, same Zach Morris, Mark Paul Gosselaar, the actor. I did not know that he was in the same boat, that we were both 1/4 Filipino. I always thought he was a white guy, but I guess that's sort of like Keanu Reeves. Who knew that Keanu Reeves is I think he's 1/4. He's got some Asiat.
Yeah, I think as far as Japanese. So
Japanese, yeah, but people might accept me as white. I mean, I'm just kind of a goofy-looking guy. I mean,
so you're not sure whether or not you're white?
Well, I have no, if I tell people, I don't go up to people and go, hey, do you know that I'm 1/4 Filipino, hoping for acceptance or hoping for some sort of, because I live in a pretty liberal city, so I think if I probably told white girls that I had, 1/4 Filipino, I mean, they might think that's more attractive because they were dating someone that's from a diverse background. But no, I you know what, Cree, just for clarification purposes, most people would probably say, hey, that's a white guy right there, and I think that they'd say that. So going forward, yes, probably people would say, and people have said, hey, that guy, it's a white guy, until they saw kids. So
okay,
they saw my mom.
So is your mother, because you said you're 1/4, right? So does your mother function as white? Is she white?
Well, I guess that people would say that she acts white. I guess if Filipinos fall into that category, that pernicious category that successful blacks get labeled as when they try and overachieve and sadly, I think that's one of the worst aspects about our country, is that people who try and succeed get categorized and labeled as acting white. No, my mom is not white. She does not look white.
And
not
so you don't think that white people accept her as white then?
Well, I mean, she certainly is a law-abiding human being who has reared 4 great children and myself, and she's pretty normal. I think that most people would just treat her as a human being, as an American, as they have.
Okay, but your father is most definitely white?
Oh, he's a Caucasian.
Okay. So you're pretty good at identifying who's white and who's not, and so did I make a mistake there? Do you think that you're pretty accurate in identifying who's white and who's not white? Because you've done a lot of writing about white people, so I would assume that you know who's white and who's not.
Yeah, I have fun writing about white people. They're a fun subject matter.
Okay, so so we're pretty clear. If you've been writing about white people, you know who's white, who's not. You put yourself in that basket. You're a white person. The only reason I'm asking is because if you're not white, I got the wrong guy.
Well, I can tell you something funny about sort of how whites are now. When I was I did play high level football. I can't say where I went to school, but one of my coaches was he was a Samoan. He played at one of the big one of the top 10 programs, and I remember one day we were joking about white people and not being fast, and he said, when I played football, I ran a 4.340, and all the black guys said, "Look at that white boy run." So I mean, I think that we live, like I said, Cree, people think I'm white. I'm just,
okay.
I look white. So I know white people. I probably know white people better than most white people know themselves.
So would it be safe to say, then, and this is going to go towards something that you've written about, which is, I think the last article you wrote on your blog, you wrote about what happened to the freedmen, people of so-called African ancestry who've been expelled from the Cherokee tribe. So this does go to that. If we're talking about, what qualifies a person as this or that, according to what people. So it does relate to the things that you've talked about. So I've lost my train of thought. You were talking. Well, gosh, I've lost my train of thought, and it's very important too. In terms of people being classified as white or not. Oh, this is what I wanted to ask you. So it sounds like what you're saying is that what's in your genetic background does not entirely determine whether or not you are a white person or function as a white person. Is that correct?
That's an interesting question. I think that you've seen with genetics that my dad's a pretty Nordic-looking guy. Rephrase the question. Sorry, I was thinking about something when you asked that question, and I was ready for a question about the Cherokee. I wasn't anticipating that question.
Right. Can a person be white even if they have a parent or a grandparent who is not white?
Wow, great question. I think that you've seen with the odd phenomenon of acting white, which is lampooned in all of culture, that obviously some kind of mindset or some type of characteristics are now associated with whiteness, with being white. And I think that, you know what, I'm going to go and say this. I'm going to say yes. I think that obviously there are some characteristics that are now described as white. And, I think without a doubt.
Okay, now if Samuel L. Jackson had all of those characteristics, we said we were going to have a very frank and honest discussion.
Yeah.
If Samuel L. Jackson had all of the characteristics that you would define as white characteristics behaviorally, would he be accepted as white by white people?
That's an interesting question because Samuel L. Jackson actually played a character in a movie called Amos and Andy with one of my favorite insane actors, Nicolas Cage, and they actually posed that question. He was a successful doctor, and I believe he was vacationing in Martha's Vineyard, sort of like a Henry Louis Gates type. Didn't have a tricycle like Henry Louis Gates does. He was also married to a black woman in the movie. Henry Louis Gates is married to a white woman. The guy from Harvard who got arrested and Obama said the cop was acting stupidly. Sorry, I'm deviating. No, in that movie, Amos and Andy, Samuel L. Jackson actually had all the characteristics, but that's where sort of the angry black man that he's been known to play came out. I think, yes. I think that if he had the characteristics of... Yeah, of course he would. I mean, he'd be called acting white, and then the Samuel L. Jackson we know would actually be a Don Cheadle, or he'd be the LeVar Burton, or what's the guy's name from Reading Rainbow? Right, LeVar Burton. So are you saying that LeVar Burton and Don Cheadle are white men? I'm not saying they're white men. I'm saying that we're talking about the characteristics. I'm saying that they would be labeled by more of the authentic blacks as acting white, and they would be seen as sabotaging blackness, sabotaging and being capitulating to the enemy. And I think that's where that whole concept of acting white has come from. You're not being real. You're not keeping it real. And yeah, I mean, look, W.E.B. Du Bois had his concept of the talented tenth. I mean, it's probably now at this point. I mean, it's probably the talented third or the tooth. I mean, I don't even know what you'd say. There are people you can be successful in America, and guess what? It's because this is, like it or not, as you've said, this country is a European America, is derived from European principles. I didn't say that. I don't know who did say that, but I didn't say that. Well, I'll say it because it's pretty obvious. I mean, our traditions come from England, and there's and the Anglo respect, and of course there's a fusion of of other European nationalities in there and their cultures that they brought over, and I think that that's shown that that's the mainstream. I mean, if you look at the height of when America was at its power, I think you can look at that as July 20th, 1969, when largely, well, actually, NASA was almost all white then, when engineers from Project Paperclip were brought over from Germany, Wernher von Braun, and they were fused with some of the smartest men ever, who, by the way, got to the moon with slide rulers. Let's look at that. They didn't have TI-83 scientific instrument calculators. They used slide rulers. Abacus. They used those type of things to get to the moon. That was the height of America, and at the same time, you had major American cities that were burning, that were just getting done smoldering. You had Detroit, you had the Watts riots, you had all sorts of riots where the country was, you had all sorts of unbelievable social changes taking place with this concept of whiteness, whatever we want to call it, or white people, or the characteristics are surrounded with white people. We were capitulating to, I guess the best way to put it, are some of the militant blacks, especially on the college campuses, at Michigan and at Ohio State. You had the Black 14 incident that same year that man went to the moon. You had the Black 14 incident at Wyoming, University of Wyoming, where 14 black students wanted to wear armbands in the game where they protested Brigham Young because BYU wouldn't allow blacks to be, or I think it was priests, they weren't allowed to be in the clergy. And so the black players who were sort of egged on, I can't remember the guy's name, he was the one who wanted to protest the 1968 Olympics. He taught
Tommy Smith?
No, ma'am. He taught at San Jose State.
No, it would either be John Carlos or Tommy Smith.
It wasn't the ones who held their fists up. It was
I see.
It was the professor who taught at San Jose State. And he wrote,
Harry Edwards.
Harry Edwards, that's it. Harry Edwards. He's one of the most dynamic individuals in American history, in my opinion, because he pressured a lot of, or his books were very prominent in changing the attitude toward the black athlete. And as Sports Illustrated, they wrote a fantastic series in the late 1960s about the black athlete. And
could I intervene just a second here?
No, by all means, go ahead.
Okay. If at the end of this interview I'm confused, that's the only way that I would consider this interview to have not been successful. And right now I'm confused.
Well, let's get back to we're on a path of righteousness, so we won't be confused.
Okay. I'm trying to get from you, a person who has written extensively about white people, about black people, about the defects in behavior, in Constitution, which is something that I wanted to get to with you, about black people. You've written a little bit, you allude somewhat to people who you call brown, and I'm not sure exactly what that is, but I'm trying to get clear from someone who I thought was an expert on who is white and what is white and who is black and what is black behavior and whatever else is associated with black. I'm trying to get from a person who I thought was an expert on that what a white person is. And so when I asked you whether or not a person who looks like Samuel L. Jackson could be white under any circumstances, and the circumstances I chose just to make it pure was if he exhibited the behaviors that you're calling white and nothing but those behaviors, would he be accepted as and be able to function as a white person by other white people? And let's just say the vast majority of the readers of your blog. I mean, I think it's a pretty simple question. I think it is. I hope you think that it is, so that I can just get clear.
Yeah, you know what? I would say no. I would say that Samuel Jackson would no. But here's my next point. Would he want to be classified as white, though? What would he gain? I mean, he'd be called an Uncle Tom by blacks if he wanted to be, if he was called white. So no, I would say that whites. You're right. You're exactly right. I mean, most whites would look at a Samuel Jackson who exhibited characteristics of blacks. They'd say, hey, this is my token black friend that I can bring around and I can feel safe around. And then blacks would look at that person and be like, oh, that's an Uncle Tom, man. That's a sellout. And that person is in a bind either way, because one group looks at him as a sellout, the other one looks at him as just a societal toy to take advantage of to get a better position in life, because well, let's face it, a lot of whites voted for Obama because it made them feel good that they elected a black person to be president. I think that goes without saying. It gave them some sort of high. It was like a drug to see a black person as a friend at their dinner table, or as the president of the United States. Although his only qualification was that he was a community organizer. And if you look at Chicago, especially the South Side, the community definitely isn't organized. Considering that there have been reports published in the Chicago Sun-Times that the South Side of Chicago is more violent than Afghanistan or Iraq at this moment. So no, he wouldn't be considered white.
Okay.
Let's put it that.
Right. Okay. So that let's say that you are, even though you say you have a quarter of genetics that come from people who are called Filipino, but you are white. But somebody like Samuel L. Jackson is not. And would it be safe to say that if you look white, you can be classified as white?
Great question. Wow, good question. Barack Obama is one half white. I don't think he's ever classified himself as white on any census form. In fact, on his census form, he classified himself as black, although he was raised by his white grandparents in Hawaii in the laps of luxury and privilege. Obviously, Barack Obama hasn't ever seen any reason to classify himself as white. He saw no societal gain from doing that. I mean, we have no idea if he benefited from programs such as affirmative action, getting into Harvard or into Occidental, because he sealed his academic records, which, hey, that's cool. I'd do the same thing if I were him. Let's be honest. What you said is correct. Obviously, there is little to gain from these terms are outdated, but I'm going to use them. But from a octoroon trying to classify himself as white. I mean, Rihanna in Bermuda was classified as white, even though here she doesn't look white at all. But the people in where she's from thought she was a white girl. In fact, I think she got beat up because, is she from Dominican Republic or is she from the Bahamas?
I believe she's from the Bahamas, yeah. Yeah,
well, they thought she was white there. She was classified as white there. So I guess it's all, since we are talking about America, I mean, does Brianna look white? I've got a lot of friends who probably say she's kind of cute. I wouldn't say that. But I don't think she'd be classified as white here.
So question, the white people in Bahamas, because there are quite a few of them, were the white people in the Bahamas accepting her as white?
I cannot speak on Bahamas. I've never been there. I've heard it's not very safe. I just know that that black people there made fun of her and called her a white girl, which I think is very interesting because it's just like Eric Holder. He's from Jamaica, and I think he's considered white in Jamaica. He comes here, and he looks like James Earl Jones.
I've been to Jamaica, actually, and I haven't spent a great deal of time there, but I have been there, and I saw any number of people who looked like him and maybe somewhat lighter skinned, and they definitely had more things. They definitely had more prestige, I would say. But I asked a lot of questions while I was there, and no one said anything to the effect that these lighter-skinned people, who looked to me more like, George Bush or Brad Pitt than Eric Holder, I heard nothing that led me to believe that they were thought of as white. And I guess the question would be is if any group of black people anywhere on the planet, but since you seem to be much, focusing on the part of the world called the United States, any group of black people called anybody white, would that be enough to allow them to function as white in the most effective way, meaning around other white people? So if we all decided that Barack Obama, all the black people in this country decided that Barack Obama was a white guy, would he be able to function as white with white people? Come on.
I think that his entire life he's shown that can be. I mean, yes, in Hawaii he was treated without any hostility, without any. I mean, I think he tried to write that he experienced some bigotry in Hawaii, but the guy went to the best prep school in Hawaii, and Hawaii also has. I've been to Hawaii a lot. I have family that lives in Hawaii. There's the only racial bigotry in Hawaii is from the native Hawaiians to white people, and I can't remember the word that they used to describe Caucasians. But look, Barack Obama. What was it when Wanda Sykes said? It was hilarious during the press conference during the 2009 press dinner where she said, Barack Obama, he's our boy, he's our brother, he's our black guy, but if he screws up, it's going to be what's wrong with that half white dude. I mean, look, it's if.
Yeah, I saw that actually, but I guess I am anxious to get into more of the meat of what's on your blog, but this is just so important in terms of who's white and who's not, and even who's black.
No, I agree. I see what you're trying to do, Cree, and I do agree that there are necessary parameters that one needs to get at as we move forward. So again, like you said, I don't want you to be confused at the end of this interview. Which, gosh, I can't believe how fast it's going.
Yeah. I was gonna see. If I don't know if you actually have to, just absolutely have something you have to do in an hour, but I'm here. So.
I was gonna watch It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia on my DVR. It's my favorite show. So, anyways.
Okay. Well, I guess. I don't know. If you go back and pose this question on your blog and said, hey, all the black people in America, so-called, want to decide whether or not Barack Obama is white. And if they decide that he's white, we have to take him, right? We have to treat him like he's white because black people have decided that he's white and they don't want him. What kind of response are you going to get from the people that read your blog?
We have to take. Okay, let me see if I heard that right. I'm sorry. You said that if all the people on my blog decide, if it was decided by blacks that Obama was all of a sudden classified as white, would whites accept him? I completely no. Barack Obama spent his entire life trying to do everything to undermine the ideas of merit. I mean, if you take Barack Obama has done everything possible in his career to gravitate toward blackness, repudiating his mother's side. So no, of course they wouldn't. Of course they wouldn't. And I think that goes with a lot of people. I mean, look.
What about LeVar Burton? What about LeVar Burton?
LeVar Burton.
What if we all said he's white? He's white. Would all the white people say, "Oh, he's white"? Oh, because he's not down with black people. He's white.
I think a sizable portion of Americans who do profess to be colorblind, who would probably say, "Gosh, LeVar Burton seems like," and I'm going to use this term, and again, I'm not trying to bring back archaic or draconian terms, but they'd be like, "Oh, that's a good Negro."
But he'd still be a Negro, right?
He would he would be a Negro, and that's the thing to point out is that he's exhibiting characteristics that would have him be classified by the black community as acting white, but he would still be considered a good Negro. That's hopefully that's somewhere. Hopefully that's a good point to go from here.
It is, because I think what we've decided is that black people can't determine who's white. Ultimately, white people make that decision, correct?
Hey, I think that's a great point.
Okay, excellent. All right. Now, that having been said, that having been clarified by somebody who I think is an expert, I think I'm more clear on what we mean in this conversation when we talk about a black person and a white person. At least I hope we're clearer. Now, I wanted to ask you, who's the target audience of your blog? Did you have one? Do you have one now?
No, there's no target audience, and I think that if you look at the blog roll, I mean, I'm just interested in getting down to truth, some sort of Socratic concept of truth, the Aristotelian concept of truth, or just out there. And I like blogs. I mean, I love going to news1.com. I love the Griot. I love the Root. Those are fantastic sites. World Star Hip Hop. I mean, those are websites that's a website where blacks will just upload the most obscene videos, and they get enjoyment and mirth out of this, and they love showing some of the more risque aspects of black culture that most whites will never see. Because, well, if you look at if you want to see true diversity, go to World Star Hip Hop. That's one of the reasons that you see white people. Once a city starts going 15-20% black, they'll move to a new suburb for good schools. No, it's not because of good schools. It's because they're escaping the behavior that you see profiled and, dare I say, celebrated on a site like World Star Hip Hop, where videos will get hundreds of thousands of hits. And I think that's one of the reasons why you see a county like Clayton County, Georgia, which 20 years ago was one of the top counties in the country, which is now the foreclosure capital of the country. And it also was the first county in 40 years to lose its accreditation. It's now 69% or 75% black. You've seen a complete change in the racial characteristics and the racial demographics. And with that, you've seen businesses leave because they can't sustain themselves there. The population that is now the majority is incapable of sustaining, your Walmarts, your Sears, your Lowe's. They just closed the Lowe's in Riverdale. That's in Atlanta. I find, if you want to look at the true race relations of the country, look at the major cities and look at the suburbs and the patterns of where people live, and you'll see how horrible race relations really are in this country. Look at Atlanta, look at Milwaukee, look at Chicago, look at Detroit, look at Washington D.C., look at New York City, look at San Francisco, look at Portland, look at Dallas, look at Tulsa, Oklahoma. Look at Los Angeles. Look at Memphis. It's pretty frightening how Americans will say one thing about race publicly, but privately, and every decision that they make that has to do with their lives, they will do the opposite when it comes to their views on race. So that's, you asked who the target audience is. I guess my audience, the audience I'm looking for is, it's just people who are searching for that private truth that they refuse to publicly admit, which is why. Right. So that's most of America. And most people don't want to hear this. That's America for you. America is a country that publicly says one thing and privately does the exact opposite. It's that simple. That's America for you.
So, because we seem to be running out of time, that's okay. I'm going to try to get to the more critical questions now.
I'll come back anytime you'll have me, Cree, because let me tell you, it's been an absolute pleasure talking with you. You asked some very pointed questions, and it's been a privilege so far. So thank you.
Well, we will definitely have to have you back. I'll take you up on that, and thank you for agreeing to come on. Like I said, I wasn't sure you would do it, but I was very glad to hear you pick up the phone. So thank you so far, I'm learning. Now, what are the things? I mean, I think this is really why you're here. What are the types of things that white people will say when no black people are around? What are the things that white people say that they don't want black people to hear?
What are the things that white people don't want black people to hear?
That they really think, yes.
Wow, that's a tough question. I think one of the things that you'll hear people say, white people will be sitting around a table and they'll bring up a city, and someone will go, "Oh gosh, it's not safe to go there. It's such a ghetto." Maybe someone's talking about, say, I'm just going to throw some cities out, but like Richmond, Virginia. Someone will be like, "Oh God, I had a friend that went to University of Richmond, and he had such problems there, getting around. He got his car stolen." And someone will be like, "Well, that's because it's a ghetto." And then someone will be like, "Well, no, it's not. It's because it's ghetto. It's because there's a high preponderance of black crime there."
Is that how they say it? Could you say to us the way they say it?
That's what I say. I like to have fun with verbalization. No, people will say it's because of black crime. It's because Richmond. It's like Baltimore. Someone will be like, "Oh, I was going to go to a Ravens game or a Baltimore Orioles game, but God, you try and park and you have to go through just this horrible ghetto." And then someone will be like, "You mean blacks?" Or it's kind of like when Donald Trump just inadvertently said when he was talking about how he had a great relationship with the blacks. I mean, that might be one of the only public admissions where somebody said something that was so to the point. Because a lot of white people look at blacks as being monolithic in their thought. And, take a look at the Atlanta public school fiasco, where you got to see human biodiversity hilariously play itself out, where, for 10 years, the black school system there was manufacturing grades and creating false reports for one of the standardized tests. And look, whites have fled Atlanta. Whites have created suburbs all over the country. all over Atlanta to get away from black people. And to be truthful, Cree, this is in every major city, like Memphis and Birmingham. They've created thriving suburbs, and people always be like, well, we can't go live in Birmingham. We can't go eat at a restaurant in Memphis. We can't go down and go to King Street in Memphis, or gosh, we have to live in one of these different parishes in New Orleans because it's just not safe to live in New Orleans. And then you might hear someone just chime in and be like, well, it's because blacks live there. It's because Memphis is synonymous with crime. Well, Memphis is also 85% black, and most whites are actually pretty tactful. They're not going to say things. They're not going to say it. They're going to use words that sort of are code for whites. When someone says ghetto, that's synonymous with black. When somebody says, we moved to an area because they have a good school system, a safe community, that's code word. That's pretty much synonymous with there are less than 5% blacks in this area, and the schools are good because, well, there aren't that many black students that are enrolled there. So, most whites are.
Even with each other, you folks use that kind of coded terminology even when there are no black people around?
Well, because we live in a society where you can't say anything bad about blacks. You live in a society where even the slightest slip of the tongue about black people is ruinous to your career, to your social and societal acceptance and rising up the ladder of. Really, I think it should be called the ladder of tolerance, because the higher you go in a organization, it's because you have been as bland and as non-confrontational and combative as possible by going to all the diversity seminars and saying the right things and playing the right politics. Look, this is go to diversityinc.com. That's real America now. That's what corporate America has become. It's not like whites are going in and cracking racial jokes while they play on the 18 holes of golf or go smoke cigars. To succeed in America now, you cannot say anything negative about, as Donald Trump called them, the blacks. I mean, I think you saw what happened to Michael Richards, where he basically had to castrate, where he had to go and grovel in the court of public opinion after he said those regrettable things to the hecklers, which there's no reason for him to do that. But you saw how quickly he was lambasted by virtually everyone. I don't think anyone defended him. Most whites understand. Okay, Cree, here's the answer for you. White people understand how to play the game in America, how to rise that ladder of tolerance, that corporate ladder. They understand that if you do anything confrontation, any studies on in academia, any studies on differences in the racial gap in learning, why that actually exists, or patterns in crime, that could jeopardize your career and your hopes of a future and your vocation and what I call Black Run America, which Black Run America is a term that has gained popularity on the internet, and it just simply means that America exists in every facet possible for the advancement of black people, to the detriment of the majority population. And whites will bend over backwards to see black advancement in academia and in the military and in corporate America. And you can see that by the disproportionate levels of black involvement in the federal government and local and state governments, which is one of the reasons why the black middle class is rapidly falling apart before our eyes, because black people rely so much on government employment to be in the middle class. And that's Black Run America in a nutshell. People just want honesty. People want truth. I think this goes both ways for most black people. And I don't speak for all whites here, Cree, and I hope you will understand this, but white people, it's not like white people are saying to themselves, oh gosh, if only all these blacks were back in Africa. No one's saying that. I think most white people just want to be like, gosh, what's wrong? What can we do? We can't say anything bad about blacks, or else we risk losing our jobs, or we'll risk, having, if I own a company and I decide that if I want to fire a non-productive person who happens to be black, I'm fearful that Jesse Jackson or Al Sharpton are going to come down and protest this firing. And if we've reached that level of the country, then we're far worse than what the Bolsheviks had in Russia. And I think we are far worse when it comes to stuff than the Bolsheviks were. So.
Okay. So I did have one little clarifying question based on what you just said, and then I'm hoping, because we're coming up on the hour now, I do have several people on the switchboard, and two of them do want to ask you questions, and I know we're getting very close, so let me just ask this real quickly. Would it be correct to say that white people, even in their closed-door discussions, or their totally white golf games, do not say or do not wish for the black people in this part of the world to go across the ocean and get out of here and go to Africa? You don't want us to leave, is that correct?
I don't think, people might joke that. If you ever saw the Boondock Saints, there's the famous "I'll have a Coke" joke about, a white guy, black guy, and Hispanic are walking on a beach. I'm sure you've heard the joke. Your listeners can go hear it.
I don't think that I've heard it. Could you? Oh, Boondocks, yes. These listeners,
Boondock
definitely.
Saints.
Yeah.
I will say this, look. And this is a theory I have that I will explore further, but it wouldn't be funny if it wasn't true in some respects, but I'm not saying that all, like I said, it's not like all whites are out there saying, oh gosh, I'll have a Coke if all Mexicans went back to Mexico and all blacks went back to Africa. No, that's not true. But it wouldn't be funny if there wasn't some truth in it, and I think hopefully you understand that with that concept. I mean, Dave Chappelle made $30 million off of making fun of black culture, and it wouldn't be funny if a lot of that wasn't true. It would be like, God, this Dave Chappelle guy, God, how is he denigrating his own people like that, black people like that? Well, guess what? Most white people saw a lot of truth in what Dave Chappelle was doing, and that's one of the reasons why I think he stopped doing his show. It's why Chris Rock will no longer perform his monologue on the difference between black people and niggers, to put it lightly. I mean, in episode of The Office, I think one of the first episodes of The Office, one of the most popular shows for white people around, I think the Steve Carell character, Michael Scott, used that line where he said, "Why isn't it okay for whites to say this?" Well, because whites can't say that. Chris Rock got away with it because he's a pretty edgy, hilarious, and a very smart comedian who didn't realize that, guess what, most whites would laugh at this because they actually believed most of the things that he said. And they were shocked that a guy like Chris Rock would, and his audience would laugh like they did. I'm sure you've seen the clip on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, look, it wouldn't be funny if it wasn't true. Let's put it that way. So,
okay. So it sounds like it's mixed. Pun definitely not intended. It sounds like it sounds like there are some people at some times, at the very least, who do have that wish, but there seems to be some ambivalence. They're not so sure they want us to go. And on that, because I do want to have you back, I think that I would like to pick up the interview on that question to explore it further next time. Could you take a couple of calls?
Cree, I can do whatever you'd like to. And again, like I said, I would be honored to come back on because this has been a very interesting dialogue. And let's take a couple calls. This should be fun.
Okay. If you are 3951, you are on the air. Who are you?
Greetings.
Hello?
Can I be heard?
You can be heard loud and clear, sir. Do you have a question for Paul?
Yes, Paul. My question for you is, what's your definition of racism?
I don't even know if that... Hey, first of all, thanks for the question. Thanks for listening. I have no idea what that word means anymore in America. I really don't. I think that it's a nebulous word that it's tossed around too freely. There are actual racists in this country. I think that based on all the facts that I've seen from the story down in Mississippi, that those kids who killed the black guy, which CNN decided to talk about after a month after it happened, that they started profiling a lot. That obviously looked like it reeked of racism when the white teenagers ran over the black guy, based on all the evidence that has come out. But then I'd also say that based on all the evidence we've seen so far, a lot of the incidents that happened this past summer, like in Milwaukee, when hundreds of blacks pulled whites from their car, I'd say that there's obviously some level of racism in that if they were targeting whites. I think that if you're in Philadelphia and you're a white person and you fear walking down the streets because you've had a lot of black people target whites this past summer, that's obviously racist. I just don't know what the word means anymore, dude. I don't. I really don't. I think it's here. If I may say this real quick, and that's a great question. I think that a lot of people believe that any criticism, if a white person was to criticize, a black person, to be like, oh God, why do black people, why do they not pull their pants up? Why do they wear them so low? I think that some black people would be like, ah, damn, that motherfucker's racist. That's just our style. That's just our culture. And, I respect that. I mean, who cares? I think that a lot of these laws that are being passed in Florida and Arkansas are outrageous because to make people put on belts. Because a lot of ways, I think that, I've seen stories where, black criminals have not been wearing belts and they've been trying to run away from a crime scene and they've fallen over and the cops have been able to capture them. I think that's hilarious because if they had been wearing a belt, they probably would have got away. But because they weren't wearing a belt and their pants were sagging, they didn't get away and they got captured. So look, dude, I have no idea what racist means. Everyone has their own definition of it, and right now in our country, I think that a lot of people think that any white person who dares say anything negative, regardless of what they're saying, black people have been conditioned, and a lot of white liberals have been conditioned to believe, my God, that person's ready to put on some sheets and go put a burning cross in someone's yard, and that's pretty unbelievable conditioning that we've reached a point where any type of criticism, whether it's merited or warrantless, any type of criticism has that kind of knee-jerk response, and that's really bad because look, I do talk about crime a lot, and let's be honest, the levels of blacks commit, I believe, 49% of murders in this country. The majority of people they're murdering are blacks. It's black on black crime. And so for someone to point that out, what's wrong with that? Blacks are being it's fratricide. Blacks are killing each other in places like New York and New York City and Detroit and Newark. What's wrong with being like, hey, what's wrong with a white guy or someone else saying this needs to stop? So if I don't know what racist means, dude. Sorry for taking so long to answer that.
Thank you for answering my question. That'll be all. Thank you, Cree. Thank you,
hey, dude.
Well, can I ask who is this? Is this Sir Anton?
Correct.
Or is this, okay. Thanks for calling in, Sir Anton.
Hope that answered it, Anton.
Okay. If you are 9744, you are on the air. Do you have a question for Paul?
Can I be heard?
Loud and clear.
Thank you very much. Getting back to the topic at hand, I am a non-white black female, and I'm interested to know from Octoroon Paul, what is the importance of your doing a blog about what stuff black people do not like?
Okay, let me make sure I got this question right. You're asking what the importance of doing SBPDL.com is, and I would just simply say that Eric Holder said we should have a conversation about race, and all I do is, look, it's kind of just a hobby. It's just, if you look at the origins of the site, it was a spoof of stuff white people like. One of the most popular entries was tipping. There's been a lot of research into, do black people tip worse than whites? Issues that might force someone to be called racist, and I actually want to live in a pretty good country where I don't feel frightened to walk down a street in a major city because it's known for having crime. And you know what? If Baltimore is synonymous, or Memphis, or Atlanta, or Detroit, is synonymous with black crime, what's so bad about pointing that out? What's so bad about saying, hey, it's black people committing crime largely against black people, and that's why white people don't live in Detroit, one of the most unsafe cities in the country, in the world. So, I mean, just go look at the site. I mean, like, I don't think, it's not like it's getting hundreds of thousands of hits. It's its own little niche. It's people who might like the writing style. And as Cree pointed out, and I'd be the first to tell you, I'm just a guy I'm a stream of conscious guy. I have fun writing it. Cree pointed this out, and I think we joked about this before I came on. There are a bunch of errors. There are a bunch of grammatical errors. I mean, look, I'm just writing what's on my mind. But I will tell you this. Any fact that I put on there, you can click on the hyperlink. It comes from a reputable source. My favorite quote, my favorite source in the world is this: single black females have a net worth of $5 in this country. That is a fact. You can look that up. Go Google that. That's what I call a hate fact, because anything that paints black people, being negative or fiscally unsound, whatever, it's always when black people want to say that they have lower access to credit because they're black. No, it's because a lot of black people. I don't have the greatest credit. I think I have like a 710 credit score. I don't know if that's good or not, but a lot of black people are just fiscally irresponsible, and I think that the way that you can look and you can quantify that is that statistic. Single black females in America have a net worth of $5 flippin'. And I don't see anything wrong with pointing that out. In fact, I got that stat from news1.com, my favorite website. News1.com I hope you guys go to it all the time. It's hilarious. It's got great commentary, and they highlight articles like that. That's where I found that article. So, thanks for the question.
Thank you for calling in. If you feel like your question was answered, that's a question to the caller.
Yes and no. I would like to get an example of something that black people don't like.
Tipping. Their own hair. Chris Rock did a documentary on how black women spend, even in this economy. I've read that even in this economy, black women spend something like $3.5 billion on having their hair straightened out. What else don't black people like? They don't like to camp. They don't like going to state parks. Less than 0.8% of people who go to state parks in this country are African American or black. Sorry, I don't like that phrase. I think that, we're all American, and to differentiate yourself by a continent. Anyways, sorry, deviating again. Well, gosh, if you take a look at the top 10, well, hold on, some other things that black people don't like. Gosh, that's a good question. Just go to the blog. I wrote a book on it. There are over, I think, 880 entries, and I think over 500 of those. Well, I mean, there's the famous thing we could talk about: ghost dogs and registered mail. I mean, there was that internet spoof that, black people don't like ghost dogs or registered mail. There's a horrible statistic, which I don't know if it's true or not, but the Atlantic Monthly, which is one of the most prestigious the most prestigious magazine in the country, stated that in 20 years, if trends continue, all black women, this is not just some percentage, all black women will be classified as morbidly obese. So if that's true, which the Atlantic Monthly reported back in 2010, I can't remember what month it was, then obviously black people don't like to pass on seconds. It's just look, all it is just pointing out stereotypes, and stereotypes exist for a reason, because enough people from a group have participated in that activity. Black people don't like non-menthol cigarettes. I guess that's I think that's one of them, because what's the one company? I don't know. It's a good question. It's a tough question, but I just think the world needs to know SBPDL, stuff black people don't like. What are the topics? What are the things that black people don't like?
Is that sort of a window on the defects of black people as an explanation for the problem that we present?
Well, again, I think that's kind of a loaded question there, because I don't think that well, what problems would black present? I think that in a way you're answering your question by saying that blacks pose a problem.
I thought that's what your blog was all about. Was the problem?
Well, all right. Here's a great point for you. The number one city right now to live in is Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. This is a study was just done about Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh is the best place to live in America. Pittsburgh is a lot like Detroit. Detroit lost a lot of its industry. Pittsburgh lost its steel industry. Pittsburgh lost all sorts of jobs. Yet Pittsburgh was just rated the best place to live in America. Now, Pittsburgh's demographics are shockingly similar to Detroit's demographics. Detroit is 90% black. Pittsburgh is 90% white. Now, Detroit lost a lot of stuff. It lost its industries. It lost a lot of jobs. A lot of blacks moved there because of horrible things that were going on in the South. Interesting, though, a lot of blacks are now moving back to the South. It's like a reverse migration. For Pittsburgh, lost its steel industry, lost all of its jobs. Now, why is it that Pittsburgh was able to maintain and even become a better city, while Detroit, which was once the biggest city in the world, one of the biggest cities in the world back in the 1930s, with the most amazing architecture, is now the laughing stock of the entire world? That's all I'm going to say, and that should answer your question. That's the kind of stuff that SBPDL.com will talk about. Why is Detroit the way it is? Why is Pittsburgh, which was just rated the best place to live in America, why is Pittsburgh, which lost its steel industry, the best place to live in America when it took an economic hit? Some could argue even worse than what happened in Pittsburgh. That's hopefully that answers your question.
Thank you for calling. And we have just two more callers. Can you take at least one of them?
I'll take them both if you want to.
Excellent. Thank you for calling 9744.
Thank you.
If you are 8536, you are on the air. Do you have a question for Paul?
Oh, yes, I do. Good evening to everybody.
Good evening, M1.
Hi, how you doing? Earlier...
As well as can be expected. I'm sorry.
Thank you. Earlier, Paul had made the statement that if Sam Jackson had the characteristics of what white people would consider white characteristics, he would be accepted as white. Is that correct?
Well, I believe we tried to clarify that. I think that a lot of whites would look at him as their token black friend, their non-confrontational black friend who did everything possible to act white. And I think that the movie Amos and Andy kind of shows you an upper-class reaction to him. They were still sort of, that movie shows the white people called the cops. They were still scared of him. And I think, a lot of whites would do that because, of the fact that they watch the nightly news and they see that, especially if they live in a suburb, that most of the people committing the crime and you're Baltimore, you're Atlanta, you're New Orleans, you're Memphis, you're Oklahoma City, you're Tulsa, you're Dallas, you're Houston, you're Portland, you're Denver, you're Milwaukee, you're St. Louis, you're Chicago, you're Cincinnati, all happen to have connecting racial theme there. They're all black. And look, I hate to say it, that's the way it is. You watch the nightly news, that's what you see.
Okay, but it's interesting, I beg to differ because I remember how white people in this country treated his wife's cousin, Justin Guarini, on American Idol, the second to last episode when he was the fan and cast favorite. When he brought his biological dad, all of a sudden, white people hated the guy. They loved his hair. Once they saw his black dad, all of a sudden, his cute frizzy hair, he became Sideshow Bob of The Simpsons and ended up losing. So I beg to differ on that. And two, it appears that you don't mind being considered a white person, but yet you will check other and Asian in order to gain benefits. Now, don't you think there Asian people that have two Asian parents that are more deserving of such benefits than you? And don't you think that's a form of racism that you're practicing?
Well, not at all, because most studies show that Asians score the highest, had the highest SAT, ACT scores. That's one of the reasons why Asians basically have controlled now UCLA and all the California colleges. They comprise a majority of these schools because they score the highest test scores. Why don't you have you ever on your census form do you ever put other, or do you select African American because it might give you, or a job application because it might give you more of a opportunity to get the position? I mean, look, everyone should put other. If we live in a country where we want to be democratic and where merit matters, most positions you're going to apply for will take into consideration the fact that, my God, we got a black guy applying who's got these great credentials. We need diversity. Gosh, let's put him up on the top of the pile. No, it's not racist to put other, no, not at all. And go back to your question. I will say I do agree with something that you said in your first part. Why has there never been a black bachelor candidate? Or on the TV show The Bachelor, why has there never been a black person who's been the main bachelor, the bachelorette? White people don't watch that. And white people are the target market of every television show on the major networks because white people have I think Cree said this. Well, you didn't say this, Cree. I'm not going to put words in your mouth. But TV shows on NBC, ABC, CBS, and Fox, the primary big networks that aren't niche networks like CTV or Spike or Home and Garden, they realize that they need to target people with their commercials to the people who have the purchasing power. And the facts are that black purchasing power is dwindling. I think that the average white family has something like $120,000 of net worth. Blacks have, I think, $5,000 of net worth. Now, why would you put a black bachelor candidate when a lot of whites are going to be turned off by that and not watch your show, and then your Nielsen ratings drop? So yeah, that's I don't think that's racist. I just think that is an economically sound move. Now, what you said about the American Idol, there might be some prejudicial thinking that goes into the change of the channel or the not voting for that guy. But you know what? Why did 96% of black people vote for Barack Obama? That simple. Because he's black. Why do 88% of black people still support Obama, even though black unemployment is the worst it's ever been in our history? Because he's black. There you go.
Thank you for M1, and thank you for calling and listening. Our last caller is at 7012. If that's you, you're on the air.
Oh, yeah, good evening. Can I be heard?
Yes, you can. This is Ra.
Rise? Yeah, Rise there. Or Garen.
Right. Okay. Oh, okay. I thought you two were the same. Thank you for calling. Do you have a question for Paul?
Yeah. Did I hear you say earlier something to the effect that if you let white females be known that you're part Philippine, that would increase your chances for sexual activity with them? Is that correct?
I think I off the cuff said that. Yeah, I mean, look, yes, I did say that.
Okay. Could you explain why you think that is?
I think the best way I can say that, I do live in a pretty liberal city, and a lot of the girls that live here, it's a type A high paced place with a lot of alpha type individuals, and I think a lot of the white girls here would get a kick off of the fact that they would date someone who's not white, who had some sort of I wouldn't say cream in their coffee, or they were sort of exotic, because again, I would say that I look like Mark Paul Gosselaar, and if you saw that dude, have you ever seen Saved by the Bell?
Yes, sir.
Did you think that Mark Paul Gosselaar looked like he was Filipino? Does he look like he's a white guy? Do you think he's a white guy? Best question. Zach Morris?
I always assumed that he was white, but I could be incorrect.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there would be some. Let me put it this way: there'd be some sexual capital in telling someone that I had some sort of Filipino, because, in a lot of ways, Hollywood and television has conditioned people, especially white girls, to believe that it's kind of cool to experiment, and what's wrong with that, man? So if you're out there trying to, it's sort of misogynist to say that. I will admit that, but I think that there's truth to that.
Very interesting. Well, that would be the end of our caller queue, and you did say very gracious in giving us an additional almost 20 minutes to what you had originally agreed to, and I hope that you will, we'll be able to set it up and you'll be able to come back. I very much enjoyed our talk so far. This is Paul Kersey, creator of, and I think the biggest producer of the content on the blog Stuff Black People Don't Like, SBDL, which is on Blogspot. So it's Stuff Black People Don't Like .blogspot.com. One more time, Stuff Black People Don't Like I'm hearing myself. .blogspot.com, and he also written 3 books. The first is Black Run America. That's not right. I thought I would get it right this time. Here we go. The first is Year 1, 365 Days in Black Run America. The second book he's authored is Hollywood in Blackface. And the third is Captain America and Whiteness. And they are all listed on Amazon. So if you wanted to check those out, you can go do that. Again, I want to thank you, Paul, for agreeing to do this interview, and I'm most anxious to get you back. Appreciate the candor so far, and we're looking forward to more.
Hey, anytime, and for your listeners, make it simple for them. Just go to SBDL.com, the acronym. We'd love to have you. I mean, look, come in there and comment. I do moderate comments, but just keep them. Let's keep the conversation going. That's all it takes in life. Life's pretty simple, and if you're honest and if you're open, I think people will appreciate that. And Cree, I want to thank you, and anytime we'll be back on.
Well, thank you again, sir, and you have a good evening, and enjoy watching that DVD that you've got.
Hey, it's always sunny in Philadelphia, or so they say. Take care.
You take care as well, sir. Okay, now why is it that I don't hear anything anymore? I'm going to open someone's mic and see if I can be heard. I think I hear you. Let's see.
You can be heard, Cree.
If you are. Beautiful. Okay. Well, I'm going to open up all the mics that have their hands up. If you don't want to have your mic opened, I guess you can close off your mic on that side. I do want to say that we do intend to invite him back, and there are a number of questions that I definitely want candid answers to, and I do not want to prejudice me getting those candid answers. So if you could just try to be sensitive to that as we discuss what we just heard, and at the same time try to have conversation that's constructive, that'd be appreciated. But everybody's mics are open. So anything that you want to say, you're on.
Yes, hi. I'm glad I hope you do have him back. Is that one? I don't believe he answered my question regarding, when I asked him, it appears that he functions as a white person, but then classifies as Asian or other to get benefits. Don't you think that that's taking something away from an Asian person who has 2 Asian parents? Didn't answer that question. And as for Mark Paul Gosselaar, I found out years ago, although I thought his mother was from Indonesia, I could be mistaken. So that was what I read. And it's interesting that you, as you function as a white person, because there are certain people that have two different parents that are accepted as white. He is obviously one of them, even though he hedges on it. It's obvious he is. There are a couple of actresses, the Tilly sisters. I don't know if you know who they are. Meg and Jennifer Tilly.
Oh, I did not know. Okay.
Yeah, they have Chinese. They have a Chinese dad, but they're accepted as white women. And I guess it goes to how you look. Because, for instance, if you ever watched John and Kate plus 8 or Kate plus 8.
I thought it was John Gosselin he was talking about.
No, he was talking about the guy from the Kitty TV show.
Well, no, that Kate and 8 thing. Because I don't know much about TV land. I haven't had a TV in so long that I only know about it from the magazines in the grocery store checkout stand, or if any of my students would talk about it. But those magazines with the Kate and 8, and I thought the departed father, I thought his name was John Gosselin.
Yeah, now that is the thing. He doesn't have two Asian parents, but yet whoever the Asian parent is, probably the mother, the phenotype or the genes is so strong that if you see all 8 of these children,
they look less white than he does.
Exactly. It's like now those children, unless classifications change, will not be considered white. And I'm guessing that Mr. Kersey doesn't look this way.
I think.
Go ahead.
Well, I guess what I wanted to just point out is that the critical importance of getting an answer, a simple answer to the question, "Are you white?" Because in so many cases, when you ask that question, you will get, "I'm 1/4 this, I'm 1/16 that," and you have to be really clear in getting an answer, "Are you white?" Because when you do follow that train of logic, you'll find out that, hey, that's not determinative. A person could have all kinds of stuff in their breadbasket. It's whether or not they're allowed to function as white. And, we know one big part of it is how you look. But I kind of want to get to if there's anything else to it from him. But yeah, just don't accept I'm part this, I'm part that. Don't even accept I am Arab or I am Chinese. It's, are you white?
Right.
But I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, you're correct. And the thing is, you see, decades ago, him making that statement, he would have automatically not been considered white. Mm-hmm. Now there are still a lot of white people that will hear that and say, "Oh, he ain't one of us. I don't care what he says." But it is easier now for white people to make these statements and to still function as white people, which is, I keep repeating, obviously this man does. He tries to have it both ways. And he's successful at it, obviously. And that's basically it. Because he's allowed to be a white person, he does so. Now, I will make my other comments when he comes back, because I heard a lot of offensive stuff.
Right. Well, to me, it's quite something, and I want other people to just jump in when they want to. But I've learned something. Well, let me say this. I know that there is some data there that can be mined, and the information that comes out of it, I'm not sure what it will be until it germinates and it sloshes around in my brain. But I know that there's some information that can come from the data that he agreed to come on the program to begin with, because he did his homework. I sent him a link to the show, and he did let me know that he did his homework on the archived program shows that are up there, as well as my blog. So he did his homework and still agreed to come on. And he was very curious as to why I would even invite him. And I'm just as curious as to why he agreed to come on. There's something important about the fact that he didn't agree to come on. I don't know what it is yet. And depending on what it is, I'm not even sure I would want it to be said at this point. It's kind of it's a delicate kind of point to be at in a program where we're still on the air, and yet I'm hedging bets on what's said, because I think so much constructive information can come out of part 2. But I don't want it to go past part 2 before we get the critical info, if we can get it at all. He was a bit more dodgy than I expected him to be, and I learned something from that as well. Given he was very on his blog, he's real clear. If you look at the stuff he writes, yeah, you seen it?
Yeah, I've seen it.
So I expected him to repeat or be as clear as he is in his writing, and that was interesting to me that he was significantly more dodgy. But
unfortunately, I mean, this is something of a pattern. I mean, you've definitely seen that on the cow. I mean, where white person could be very straight to the point and what they write about, and you would think that they believe in what they say, but it's obvious that that's not the case. Because all of a sudden, when you ask questions, they take different attitudes.
I'm more used to that with the. I'm more used to that with the people who take a stance that they're against racism.
Yeah.
I didn't expect it from someone who makes statements that would universally be considered racist. And I will say this, that he is the only person that I think I have ever heard, and you'll have to correct me if you've heard otherwise. He's the only white person that I have ever heard on either Gus's show or mine, and I've only had 3 of them, who said he has no definition for racism. That was mind-blowing for me. And I thought, wow, is that going to be the new tactic? And then I think we have to go and we have to analyze. Everybody's hand went up all of a sudden. I think we have to go and we have to analyze if that strategically is a good thing for us or not. Let me open up these other 2 lines. If you are RBG, I just opened up your mic, and if you are last 4 digits 7702, we got a lot of mics open. So if people can mute themselves unless they're speaking, that would be great, because everybody's mics are open, and there's some sort of background noise on somebody's line right now. But everybody who called in and had their hand up has their mic open, so I'll be quiet and just let y'all go at it.
Can I be heard?
Loud and clear.
Yeah, I had to basically ask him about what type of stuff that black people don't like, just so I could understand the types of things that he's talking about in terms of stereotypes. Now, he kept calling them facts, but they were mostly opinion, in my opinion. And, I wanted to not get too heavy-hitting, because I normally can. I'll wait for that later in discussing white supremacy. and his understanding of white supremacy, not just racism. But he gave us a lot of examples. Black people don't tip, and we all get our hair straightened and spend the mortgage money on getting our hair straightened or whatever. There were a lot of little examples that I could we could try to analyze later, but that was something that I thought was interesting. And some of his statistics were totally unfounded and ridiculous. And I'll let other people speak.
I thought that was an excellent question, by the way. Loved the question. A lot of data came out of that one.
Hello, can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Okay, this is Godzilla. I apologize for coming in as late as I did. I think I came in right when he was making statements about obesity, if I can remember correctly. I don't know. But I'm listening to you guys talk about what I missed. And if I understand you correctly, he said that, or rather, he dodged the question that you asked about him being white. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
We went many rounds to get that one.
What was his answer ultimately?
That he was white.
Okay, so he eventually came around to being white.
Yes.
Where did the Asian angle come from?
Well, when I first asked him. I actually didn't ask him. I did not ask him. Now, I learned, don't ever mess up and make a statement about whether someone is white without asking them first. But given that he's written this book on Captain America and Whiteness, and he's got article after article after article about the dangers that black people pose to white people, and he talks about, how they've ruined his favorite pastime. Black people have ruined his favorite pastime in football. Football used to be, an enjoyable sport for white people. I had no clue that he was going to be dodgy about whether or not he was a white person. But no matter what you've heard somebody say, unless you have seen them write explicitly, I am a white person, you should ask them first, because I didn't ask him. And I think in the process of asking some other question, and maybe somebody can refresh my memory on what that question was, I made a statement. I said, now you're a white person. And then he came back and he corrected me. So he said, well, no, actually, you said I'm white. Actually, I'm 1/4 Filipino. So no, I'm not all white. I'm not an all white person. And he went on at some length about that. Yeah. Okay.
Well, immediately when I heard that, when I heard the whole Asian angle, my first thought was that is validation, in my opinion. That is a validation to be able to be as racist as he can with his blogs and his books without having the racist marker placed on his forehead. In other words, it's kind of like, how can I be racist? I'm 3/4 Filipino, so I understand the plight of the minority, and at the same time embrace the whole white side of himself by throwing out all of these statistics about this, that, and the other. I really wanted to ask a question. I just didn't realize that he was going to be leaving as soon as he did, and I'm glad you're going to have him back on. But I wanted to ask him how much actual research has his organization done, his site, because he was quoting a lot of statistics from other people. He was referring to news articles by other agencies. He was referring to videos and things of that nature, but he never said anything about what kind of research and findings he actually did to get any of the answers that he got. I've learned a long time ago that statistics are skewed. They are usually leaning towards who's ever counting. If I want to convince you to buy hamburgers by using statistics, then immediately I'm going to throw out numbers of why you should versus why you shouldn't. So anybody that wants to write a statistic about, why blacks don't tip versus the ones that do are going to immediately find the numbers to buttress whatever point that is they're making. I just think he's a white boy that's racist as all get out. And he's trying to do it in an intellectual kind of a way to kind of ride the line, fly just below the radar without being, labeled as racist and being illegitimate, for lack of a better term. I think he's about as racist can get, and really do look forward to the next time you bring him on. Because just like the sister said, and you, that there should be some really hard-hitting questions for him the next time.
No doubt. I'm not going to be hesitant on the next one for part 3. I'm going to go right in and ask the things that I think I need to ask, and would encourage the callers to do the same. He has said that he told me he wanted to get tough questions, and he promised honest answers, so I don't think he should have a problem. I think you make really good points. I mean, I think that is the reason that he puts out that he's a quarter Filipino. But I think Gus said, and some of his callers have said, that a lot of times the most virulent anti-blackness, or the most virulent, vicious kind of racism, the most enthusiastic practice of racism, comes from people who feel like their place on the white team is possibly probationary.
No question. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and that that might have gone into it too.
Yeah, I'm almost certain that somewhere in there lies some kind of inferiority complex to black people. I'm pretty much absolutely certain that's what it is. But it's the old, I'm not racist. I have lots of black friends, or I know a lot of black people. Kind of an excuse when you say you're 3/4 Filipino, which in essence would give you a pass card to say what you want to say and get everybody to swallow it without immediately saying, you're a racist. Yeah, and for him to not have a definition of racism, I think you made an excellent point in wanting to examine that a little bit more, because I would not be surprised if the definition of racism all of a sudden in the next 5 or 10 years becomes heard to the point where it's non-existent. So you can't label anybody with that anymore. It's kind of like how biracial became the big thing here lately, when 50 years ago it didn't exist.
Interesting. Now that is very interesting, and I think you could entirely be correct on that. This is getting to be just like an Orwellian use of words that just you can't say the word racism anymore. And this is what I was hoping. I didn't catch this stuff, and you get a team of minds on things, and this is what I was hoping would happen by having this guy on, because I think that he definitely comes at it differently, and because he did, it's like, is this a new face? What are these new tools they're throwing at us here in the practice of racism? And I think I even said on Facebook that if you look at his blog, and kinds of things that he says, he almost uses the exact same kinds of phrasing, the use of acronyms, the couching of oneself as a victim at all times. He almost uses the exact same tactics as scientific counter-racism, and it's almost like this is the countering of counter-racism. It's a jujitsu it's a jujitsu on jujitsu. It's interesting, and we're going to have to catch our legs on this, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I think what he's doing ultimately is building up a firewall for all of the stuff that's out there now. I mean, black people are a lot more connected than they were in the 40s and 50s. I mean, the average teenager has more information at his fingertips now than, college graduates did in the 50s and 60s, by way of the internet. I think that what you're saying is correct in that this is a new tactic. It is because I'm looking at the site, and it's almost like it's supposed to be tongue-in-cheek, but has a layer of absolute seriousness underneath. In other words, let's chuckle at it, but don't play because, this stuff is real and these people out there, and I've listened to him with all of these, throwing out all of these cities that have, dilapidated and the ones that are white and thriving or whatnot. We could all probably sit down and come up with the very reasons why they are the way that they are and why it is the way that it is. But this is an individual that is offering, to me, it's like he's offering a new weapon to whites to be able to counter anything that these blacks that are out here today that are so knowledgeable and so ready to, are capable of pointing out racism and white supremacy, is offering them a new weapon to use against it. So no, he wouldn't have a problem coming on the show because that also would validate his site, and it would also play into the whole notion that, he's not a racist, because if he was and had anything to hide, he wouldn't come onto the show. Most white people that would claim to be 100% white and racist would probably not have anything to do with this.
Right.
But because he is trying to do something, he's trying to create something, he has to validate it by coming on and presenting himself as non-confrontational and someone who is open for questioning and laying his cards on the table and whatnot, when in fact he's doing research himself.
Right. And probably on that note, let's take a couple more comments and then let's close it out so we don't somehow shoot ourselves in the foot and not get more information. He wants information, we want information. Let's try to make it a win-win for him.
Can I be heard?
Yes, you can.
I don't think there's anything new that white people haven't allowed this to happen before. This could be, let's say, for instance, that he is non-white. People have passed before in the past. There's a movie called The Human Stain where someone who looked like a white person, and actually the actor, Wentworth Miller, he does have a myriad of different cultures in his DNA. One of it is American, African, Jamaican, what have you. But he came out white. And the character passed all his life as a white man. So there's nothing new under the sun in white supremacy. White people are allowing this Paul to operate as he's operating because it's benefiting white people. So there's nothing new. This is just a recycled tactic, in my opinion. It's very obvious to me. So that's all.
Well, thank you. I definitely think that you're correct, and then there's some parts that I think I disagree with. But here's the thing. I think that we should be looking for that place where we can say, we've seen this before. I think we need 2 or 3 iterations of saying, you got anything new? You don't have anything else? Because then we will know what the boundaries are of their ability to make new tools and still have the system work. So, for instance, like as a metaphor, there is only, you can change the flavor of water. You can get a nutrient. You can get water from various kinds of vegetables. You can get them from different sources. You can desalinate them. You can desalinate water samples from the ocean. There are any number of ways that you can get water. You can get them from dams. You can get them from groundwater. You can get them a whole lot of different ways. But the one thing that cannot change is that there has to be a certain amount of water intake in order for any mammal to survive. So once we get to the point where we know what that bottom line is and we don't see any new iterations, I always seen this one, because there's only so many places where you can get water. There's only so many ways you can get water. So I know that there are only so many ways that they can do white supremacy. I'm not yet convinced that we've seen all the weapons. And I do agree with you in terms of the passing part. We have seen that before. But I think if you take a look at the site, I think you may see some things that you haven't seen before. And this sort of not using nigger, talking about how you need to see white images all the time, talking about how black people are defected, that they are the problems with the cities, they are, the problems with this, problems with that there are not really any people really smart. That's a very rare thing. Those kinds of things we have heard before. We haven't heard them couched in the combination of, well, mostly I haven't, without saying, ship them all back to Africa, and or hang them all, and or, a nigger's a nigger's, a coon is a coon, and there's nothing you can do with them. There's none of them that are any good, no matter how they change their behavior. That sort of combination of saying all those negative things he said, but not using the word nigger, and not saying that, we have to be treated as less than a member of the Homo sapien species. I haven't seen that. To me, that's new.
Hello?
Yes, you're there. We can hear you.
Oh, I didn't know I was on. I was on the phone coughing and everything, but I've been listening to what you guys been saying, and before I comment, I came in at the end of the show, and I just wanted to really just see how you was coming at it, and what was your intentions for having my man on the show? What did you hope to really gain from it?
I wanted to see what the new weapons were. To me, he did offer something new. When I looked at his site, like I said before, this was just something I had never seen before. It's a combination I had not seen before, especially in this day and age. It's almost like, if I could go to the site, I wish I'd actually taken notes. Are you familiar with the discipline of counter-racism as laid out in the code book with Neely Fuller?
Not really.
Okay. Well, there's some ways that there's some ways that he advocates dealing with it in terms of scientifically, in terms of just always taking the position that you're the victim and that they're the most powerful, and that you kind of jujitsu it. That's the basic strategy. It's just go ahead and admit that they are the most powerful people in the universe, and then hold them responsible for everything. And I have never heard a white person flip it. They're using the same tactics, which I think that's actually the most advanced strategy in fighting racism. But I've never heard a white person flip it and say that black people are the most powerful people in the known universe and still advocate all these racist schemes. That was new. So I wanted to see what this guy was all about. I want to see where they're going.
Well, I understand where you was coming from with that, and just my stance on it would be that as a people in this late date, that we have to we can't make the same mistake twice, It's understood that they're going to come at us with any method that they can come to get their point across to succeed. It seems like it's like an underhanded liberal type approach, smile in your face and do it another way. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's just, we just can't follow the elementary tricks, you know what I'm saying?
I do, and I think it's a combination of things that I think that we have to be careful of, because the white supremacists have shown that they can change tactics. Yeah, I think you're right. The bottom line is that they do not ever intend to not mistreat and abuse us. Bottom line, no matter what they say or do, that's their bottom line.
Yeah,
I think go ahead.
I was just going to say further than that, that we can't expect them to. You know, our approach and our stance has to be geared towards knowing where we stand, knowing what they're about, and how we gonna deal with that. You know what I'm saying? I mean, of course they're gonna come in many different forms and come at it many different ways because we know what's happening. You know what I'm saying? But they not gonna. It's up to us to rise. You know what I'm saying? We can't expect for them to do anything but what they doing and what they've been doing. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, absolutely. Totally agree. And what we just need to do is we need to get other black people there. We need to be able to articulate, well, this is what he's saying, but this is not really what he means, and look at the lack of logic, look where he's going, so that people are where you are, so that people are where we are. Because, you go on Facebook and you see a lot of confusion, a lot of madness, and until we get a larger number of black people who understand the system of racism, white supremacy, what it is and how it works, this deception thing is going to keep on killing us. And so I think we need to be able to stay on top of it and be able to anticipate it so we can explain it to others. That's what I think. But I totally agree with you.
Hello?
We can hear you.
Yes, and also I just wanted to make a point. You said he did his homework on you. He also obviously did his homework on Dr. Welsing because, he often mentions W.E.B. Du Bois. Whenever you hear on the program.
Does. Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
he often mentions Eric Holder's statement.
You're so right. You're
so
right.
My man mention those people?
Yes, he did at the beginning of the show.
What's the significance of that, though? That don't give his argument more validity. You know what I'm saying? Because he quoting some of our scholars.
No,
it
goes back to deception.
Right, it doesn't to us. We know that it doesn't, but it does. It has a potential. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good catch. Well, before we go into waters that are going to not be where we want to go, of the callers that are on the line, is there somebody who can, because my computer freezes up, can somebody tell me when the next Cows episode is, and can you go ahead and announce that if you know? And while you're doing...
I think it was actually one that came on tonight.
What was that about? Do you know?
I can't remember. I'm not in front of a computer, I'm sorry.
Okay. Does anybody know?
I can check. The talk page tends to load very slowly for some reason.
Yeah, it freezes my computer entirely. Well, the blogs, Justice's blog, justicetoday.blogspot.com, and then there's Gus's blog. What's the address on Gus's blog? My computer's freezing, and I don't want to risk the switchboard going down. Well, if you Google Victim of Racism Diary, you'll be able to come up with Gus T. Renegade's blog. And before we go off the air, I'm going to play the commercial for counterracism.com, so I don't need to do that promo. But I just wanted to promo Gus's show today and whatever the next one is if we can. My next show is going to be this Sunday. We're going to have a frequent caller to the Cows, and she's been a frequent caller on my program as well. She goes by LBM, and I found out recently that stands for Loving Black Men. And we're going to talk about some issues that have to do with increasing the bond between black males and black females for a more effective team to counter racism, white supremacy. And we'll be discussing a number of issues. There's a book by Michael Porter that we're going to kind of use as a text for the discussion, and that'll be this Sunday right here on Blog Talk Radio at 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Central, 6 p.m. Pacific. And so do we have the show yet, or not quite? Okay. I am going to play the counterracism.com commercial. Maybe by then we'll have the info on the Context of White Supremacy show. And before we go to the commercial, let me thank everyone for listening, whether you were listening live or on the archives, and hope you'll join us this Sunday.
Is racism hurting you? On issues of race, are you unable to speak, think, and act with clarity and confidence? Are you tired of laughing when nothing is funny, smiling when you are not happy, agreeing when you really disagree? At counterracism.com, you can learn specific strategies and techniques to counter the behaviors of the people who practice racism in all areas of activity, using words correctly, following counter-racist logic, even counter-racist science projects designed to reveal what racism is, how it works, and how to counter it. The open source code writing format allows you to pick and choose from a variety of counter-racist suggestions so you can produce the code that works for you. Stop by counterracism.com today and help replace racism with justice.
That's counter-racism.com.
Fine work there. I probably have never talked about how important the program over there on Live 365 has been to me, and what a service I think that it is. I think Gus has talked about it as well. I remember being in England, and I'll tell you, the way they practice racism across the pond is, that was quite something. But I was there with a lot of English, and I was there with a lot of so-called Americans, and it was a rough time. And I remember tuning into that for the very first time when he first started on the program, and just being able to listen repeatedly to Neely Fuller and Francis Welsing talking. And just kind of, it almost felt like being, on the Nebuchadnezzar, just being in a training module of logic, of counter-racist logic. And I really got my legs. I had already read the book several times. I had numerous conversations with Mr. Fuller. But I think just hearing him talk, while I was working on my term papers and whatnot, just hearing that, it grounded me. It made me feel a lot safer. It was just a wonderful thing to hear and an incredible learning tool. It's almost like that part in The Matrix where they sat Neo down and he woke up and said, "I know jujitsu." It was like that, and so I just think it's an incredible resource, and I would just I can't say enough about it, and I would encourage anybody to just take advantage of it, so that you can, learn more about racism, white supremacy, what it is, and how it works. But did anybody come up with the next date, time, and name of the show over on the cows?
Yes, can I be heard?
Yep, you can.
Oh, there is one on tonight, Aja Ishingi, Part 3. That's on right now. And then on the 28th, he has scheduled a Pyong A. Van Dyke live from Spain.
Okay. Thank you for doing that. Thank you so much. What's your handle? Can I call you by something?
Oh, I go by DC.
Oh, DC. Okay. I've heard you before. I know your voice. I know you. But I just didn't know your handle. Thank you so much for doing that. Team effort. Totally, all the way around. I hope all of you will come back for part 2 with Mr. Kersey, Paul, as he told me to call him, and I guess so that we don't put what we want to know in jeopardy, let's call it a night. Thank you all for calling and listening. Signing out.
All right.
There's things in life you just can't control, like the weather, the traffic, or the fact that spilled coffee seems to love white shirts. But it's all good, because there's something you'll always be able to control: your company's finances. SAP Concur integrates all your business's expenses, travel, and invoicing in one simple solution, giving you the visibility and control you need to drive your business forward. SAP Concur. It's how the best-run businesses make their expenses run better. Learn more at concur.co.uk/control.